Coming up today, South Korea is demanding North Korea apologize for the landmine explosions at the border that seriously injured 2 South Korean soldiers. The military is also put on high alert along the border as tensions spike. It's a busy day at South Korea's National Assembly as lawmakers are set to vote on a slew of economy-related bills and a resolution to shore up the nation's disease management system in the wake of the recent MERS outbreak. Plus, a new OECD report shows Korea has one of the highest ratios of businesses to GDP in the developed world. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 11th of August. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, South Korea's presidential office is calling on North Korea to apologize for the landmine explosions in the demilitarized zone that seriously injured 2 South Korean troops, calling last Tuesday's incident a provocation by the North. President Park Geun-hye's spokesperson said the North Korean military intentionally planted the mines after crossing the military demarcation line without permission. The spokesperson then urged Pyongyang to punish those responsible for violating the armistice and the non-aggression agreements between the 2 Koreas. The National Security Council Standing Committee was briefed on this incident on Saturday and discussed countermeasures. Now, given the spike in tensions since Seoul identified North Korea as the culprit behind the explosions at the border, the South Korean military has raised its military alert level to the highest footing. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The South Korean military has issued an alert on the country's western border, following the Defense Ministry's announcement Monday that North Korea was behind the recent landmine explosions that severely wounded 2 South Korean troops. Defense Minister Han Min-gu says the South Korean military will intensify its operations along the demilitarized zone. Han also confirmed that South Korea on Monday afternoon resumed its previous policy of blasting anti-Pyongyang propaganda across the inter-Korean border, and is reviewing other follow-up steps it can take. This marks the first time South Korea has cranked up the loudspeakers since the 2 Koreas agreed that Seoul would stop in June 2004. North Korea has yet to issue a response since the broadcast resumed, but in 2010, when the South said it would restart the speakers in the wake of North Korea's sinking of a South Korean warship, Pyongyang threatened to fire on the speakers. South Korea's defense ministry said on Tuesday that it will counter and destroy the source of the attack if the North decides to fire on the loudspeakers. Responding to the latest spike in inter-Korean tensions, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged North Korea to respect the armistice agreement and engage in dialogue to ease tensions on the peninsula. In regards to the probe into the landmine blast, military officials say North Korea may have planted the mines ahead of a possible incursion into the south. The North might have also been trying to derail an annual round of military drills between Seoul and Washington, slated for next week. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reportedly plans to use the word aggression in his upcoming statement to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. This is according to Tokyo-based Kyodo News Agency, which reported on Monday that Abe is considering using the term to show Japan's commitment to observing an international principle banning countries from committing aggression. However, speculation has been swirling here in Seoul that Abe will not use the word aggression in the context that Japan committed such acts in the past, but rather for countries in general. Now, if that is the case, watchers say the statement will be similar to the way Abe expressed his opinion during an address to a summit of Asian and African leaders in Jakarta in April. Kyodo added that Abe is still deciding whether to issue a fresh apology for Japan's wartime atrocities in that statement, which comes out on Friday. The leaders of North Korea and Japan could meet for a summit this month. Seoul-based broadcaster YTN reported Tuesday, citing multiple sources, that 4 officials, 2 from each country, met in Mongolia last month to lay the groundwork for a summit. They reportedly discuss ways of easing Japanese sanctions against North Korea. Now, last year, Japan said it would ease sanctions on North Korea, including travel bans and fund transfers in return for Pyongyang reopening an investigation into Japanese citizens abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s. The North has yet to deliver its findings. If the two leaders meet, it will be the first encounter between the two countries since 2004. Now, over at Korea's National Assembly now, and lawmakers are scheduled to vote on whether a sitting lawmaker accused of influence peddling should be arrested. Park Ki-chun, who left the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party on Monday amid the allegations, is suspected of receiving nearly $300,000 in illegal political funds in exchange for aiding a businessman. Park's detention is subject to parliamentary consent, as sitting lawmakers are immune from arrest while the Assembly is in session. Lawmakers also plan to vote on economy-related bills, as well as resolutions to overhaul Korea's disease management system and an audit of government agencies overseeing the recent MERS outbreak. Also today, the Cabinet will formally designate this coming Friday as a temporary national holiday for Liberation Day celebrations. And several high-profile jailed businessmen and 2 million others charged with a wide variety of offences, from traffic violations to minor financial crimes, will likely be granted special pardons from President Park Geun-hye upon the 70th anniversary of Korea's independence from Japan's colonial rule. The Justice Ministry held a committee meeting on Monday to draw up the list of names eligible for pardon. Government sources say a few business tycoons currently behind bars, including SK Group Chief Choi Tae-won and Hanwha Group Chairman Kim Seung-yeon, will likely be among those to be granted amnesty as part of efforts to boost national morale and the sagging economy. The list, however, is said to exclude convicted politicians. The sources say the tentative list will be reported to the President today, with a final decision to be made before the end of the week. Now, within the last hour or so, the chairman of Lotte Group has issued yet another public apology for the public concern caused by the escalating family feud over control of the gigantic retail giant. Shin Dong-bin's apology comes as the Korean public turns increasingly impatient with the ugly family fight, which has also exposed weaknesses in the group's convoluted management structure, saying he is truly sorry for causing the public concern. Shin said he will resolve 80% of the existing problems stemming from Lotte's complicated cross-shareholding system this year. He has also promised to list Hotel Lotte, a de facto holding company of the group's Korea operations, in an apparent attempt to make the firm's management structure much more transparent. We'll bring you more updates on this story in our next newscast. Now, Korea has one of the highest ratios of businesses to GDP in the developed world, and it's fueled largely by a large number of self-employed small business owners. Song Ji-son reports.
Korea has the highest ratio of businesses to GDP in the OECD. As of 2013, Korea's GDP was $1.4 trillion, and there were 4.8 million businesses in the country. According to a new OECD report out this month, that translates to a ratio of 3.33, the highest among member nations. The report says this is due to the high number of self-employed business owners in the country. An earlier OECD report from March also suggests that Korea has the fourth highest number of self-employed people among member nations, following Greece, Turkey, and Mexico. Self-employment accounts for over a quarter of Korea's total employment at 27%. Over 90% of small businesses with less than 10 employees are classified as self-employed, either with or without employees. However, low productivity is a concern for self-employed entrepreneurs. The OECD report also notes that productivity at Korean companies with less than 10 employees is the lowest among member nations. Local experts say self-employment is largely involuntary here in Korea, as many small business owners have been left with few options but to start their own business in order to make a living, including baby boomers who re-enter the job market after retiring. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Now, Korean banks' profits in the second quarter slumped to an all-time low on falling interest income. The Financial Supervisory Service says the combined net profit of 18 local banks was $1.9 billion in the April to June period. That's 5.4% lower than the same period last year. The FSS attributed the slide to the bank's interest income. That dropped 6% on year to $7.2 billion. Now, the net interest margin, a key driver of profits, dropped to 1.58%. This is the lowest quarterly level since record keeping began in 2003. Non-interest income, on the other hand, surged nearly 60% on year on an increase in investment returns. Import prices in Korea have fallen again, while export prices have edged up on the back of a strong US dollar against the local currency rather. Data from the Bank of Korea on Tuesday shows import prices dropped 13.7% in July, due mainly to low global oil prices. This extends their on-year fall to a 35th consecutive month. The import prices of coal and oil products dropped nearly 37% last month from the previous month, compared to a 34% fall a month earlier. And while export prices fell 1.7% in July from the month before, they gained 0.9% on a monthly basis, with the won weakening against the US currency. Now, most of us would probably like something more substantial to eat, but for astronauts on the International Space Station, munching on the first ever space-grown lettuce was a real treat. The zero-G leaves were given the seal of approval, with one of the crew saying it kind of tasted like rocket. Here's our Son Jung-in with more.
That's awesome. Good. Tastes good? Yeah. I like that. Kind of like arugula. Yeah. It's fresh.
After toasting their piece of lettuce together with a quick cheers, astronauts aboard the International Space Station took the first bites of food grown and harvested entirely in space. The harvest was part of a NASA experiment aimed at developing the capability to grow fresh food on future deep space missions such as to Mars. They planted red romaine seeds in a small greenhouse on board ISS in early July and used the LED lights to foster plant growth. But this is not the first time astronauts have succeeded in harvesting greens in space. The first batch of harvested greens was sent back to Earth in October last year for safety analysis. After ground-based tests concluded it was safe, this time the astronauts were allowed to tuck in. Half of the harvested lettuce will be packaged and frozen until it can be returned to Earth for scientific analysis. NASA says fresh food like the lettuce could provide not only health benefits for astronauts who currently rely on packaged food, but also keep them happier as they travel through space. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, staying with science-related news, or really technology-related news, but down here on Earth. And what better way to ensure security than using parts of your body as the key itself? The market for technology that relies on recognizing parts of the human body to grant access to your home or business is growing rapidly. Kim Min-ji reports.
You may have seen high-tech tools that scan your eyes or fingerprints in the movies, but the technology known as biometric authentication is gradually becoming part of our daily lives. This company uses facial recognition to identify workers, allow them into the building, and track their attendance. It only takes a second to verify and match the person's face with the stored data. Not only is it convenient, but it's more secure as people's unique facial features are almost impossible to replicate. But it's not just businesses using the tech, apartment complexes are also adopting the system.
Entering your home is going to get a lot much easier. You'll no longer need keys or even need to press in a passcode. This facial recognition system makes your house more secure and completely hassle-free.
Biometric authentication is gaining popularity as a new means of identification, replacing the predominant system of numerical or text passwords. The global market is expected to reach $16.7 billion by 2019, more than a threefold increase since 2012. The growth comes on the back of the rise of fintech or financial technology that requires a high level of security as it becomes easier to make payments. Technology that can read your eyes is also being developed.
With iris recognition, users can worry less about their identity being falsely used. Iris is very unique, and even twins have different iris characteristics.
In just a blink of an eye, a transaction can be made simply by looking into a device. A local card company is planning to implement this system to make transactions easier. But like all other previous methods of identification, biometric security features come with risks.
Strong measures need to be taken to prevent biometric data leaks. If it's being stored, it means it can be leaked. Passwords can be reset and cards can be reissued if lost, but biometric features cannot be changed.
There are also doubts whether the new authentication systems will become widely used, as people may be uncomfortable having their biometric information saved on a database. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we've been following on this Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news. Have a great day. Goodbye.